animals. Even in the most wild of spaces, the movement of humans through that space becomes a factor. And the trails we leave make an impact on everything from mighty predators to those at the bottom of the food chain. For creatures like this dung beetle, it takes only one small road to make a huge impact. It's a David and Goliath struggle. Finding space to exist undisturbed is an uphill battle. But the resilience of nature is an extraordinary thing. It has the ability to adapt to constant changes. But those unable to adapt or change face a more uncertain fate. In a world where uncharted wilderness used to be the norm, now we need to look further and further to find a piece of nature untouched by human hands. But even though there is scarcely a corner of Africa untouched by humans, there are some spaces where people and wildlife are coexisting successfully. This is the Namanyak Wildlife Conservancy. It's a community conservancy in northern Kenya run by the Samburu. Like the Maasai, they are part of the Nilotic peoples. Their ancestors came south from the Nile Valley to Central and Eastern Africa. The Samburu have lived here in Kenya for centuries. They have 1 foot in their traditional past and 1 foot in the modern world. By tradition, the Samburu are pastoralists. They raise cattle, goats, and sheep. In many ways, they still live the way their ancestors did. Collecting the blood of a living cow provides a traditional and highly sustainable food source. The Samburu have an oral tradition, handing down their practices from generation to generation. As crucial as their livestock are, their lifestyle also depends heavily on the surrounding natural world. The elders pass on centuries of wisdom to the younger generation. Samburu Chief Ripatan Loldekir is a repository of cultural wisdom and tradition. Chief Ripatan continues to follow the traditions that keep him and his community tied to their old ways. Today, he's preparing to take advantage of one of nature's smallest creatures in the most traditional and sustainable of ways. Chief Ripatan is going to collect honey as he was taught to do by his father, and as he's been doing it himself for over half a century. keeps track of the location of the hives around the area. The next time he collects honey, he'll choose a different location so that his hive has time to recover. Chief Ripatan and his generation have grown up living a life that is in balance with nature. But time is catching up to the Samburu. They have become the managers of the Namanyak Wildlife Conservancy. They are no longer an isolated tribe removed from the modern world. This is a mixed blessing. One goal of Lewa and the NRT is to encourage conservation and education without being too intrusive.
In the context of what's needed for coexistence between humans and wildlife, the key thing is that the people need to recognize the value of the wildlife. It needs to have meaning to them. You know, what we need to recognize is that humans have been living with wildlife, either in conflict or out of conflict for, since time immemorial. We're just having a conversation about what the positive opportunities might be for those people.
That conversation revolves around a delicate balance of traditional ways and new opportunities. Outside support is a double-edged sword. These days, it is easier to trade for sugar than collect honey. The elders are seeing less interest in traditional ways from the young people. But there is also nothing sweeter than being self-sufficient, in harmony with the environment. Change is inevitable. But what do we lose if the ways of these traditional people are gone forever? In Kenya, a growing human population is taking up land and resources at a rapid rate. This is knocking the environment out of balance and shrinking the space that wildlife has to live on. The ideal scenario would see humans coexisting with wildlife. But to many Africans, this is a purely utopian idea. The truth is that many of these animals are too dangerous and too destructive to human activities for coexistence to ever work. To understand the threat that Africans face from these wild animals, you only need to look at the lives of the Conservancy's rangers.